This specific level of exhaustion persists because it stems from a source more taxing than a busy schedule. It is the physiological bill coming due for the constant subconscious management of how you are perceived by others. Beneath the surface of daily social performance, the chronic pursuit of external validation actively degrades your brain's neural architecture. Clinical researchers identify this as social evaluative threat. Because human survival historically depended on group inclusion, the brain processes the possibility of social exclusion as a lethal physical danger rather than just an emotional discomfort. This diagram illustrates the mechanism. When you detect potential judgment, the amygdala perceives a threat. It immediately fires a distress signal down to the hypothalamus, initiating a response identical to that of a physical predator. The hypothalamus then activates the sympathetic nervous system and the HPA axis. It releases corticotropin-releasing hormone, which triggers ACTH to travel through the bloodstream straight to the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands respond by flooding the body with cortisol. This traps the system in a biological fight-or-flight state, responding to a social event that possesses zero physical mass. While acute spikes are adaptive, chronic elevation is neurotoxic. Over time, this sustained state atrophies the hippocampus, impairing memory, and weakens the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for the rational decision-making needed to escape the cycle. Validation-seeking functions as a state of chronic neurotoxicity. It is a biological corrosive that erodes your brain's executive function with every perceived slight. Modern digital connectivity accelerates this damage. The constant social scrutiny of the internet weaponizes the evolutionary need for belonging, transforming it into a pathological state of hypervigilance. Psychologists measure this through the locus of control. When self-worth is attributed entirely to the unpredictable opinions of society, you are operating from an external locus, leaving your internal state vulnerable to variables you cannot influence. Outsourcing self-esteem creates severe cognitive overload. The brain wastes vast psychological energy attempting to predict and manipulate how peers and strangers perceive you. Long before neurobiology mapped the HPA axis, Marcus Aurelius developed a framework of cognitive reframing designed to intercept this biological hijack. Writing in his private journals, Aurelius described the inner citadel. This concept represents the historical equivalent of shifting to a total internal locus of control. He argued that the mind, when free from the passions of external validation, functions as a secure refuge. By internalizing our standards, we create a barrier at the prefrontal level that prevents social noise from reaching the amygdala. Relying on the crowd leaves your biology exposed to external manipulation. The inner citadel secures your executive function within a framework of your own making. Psychological peace requires this inward shift. The mind must become a fortress that defines its own value before biological stability can be achieved. This defense rests on a Stoic axiom: everything is opinion, and opinion is in your power. Consider the objective physics a social threat. A hostile look or a negative judgment has no physical mass. It possesses no inherent power to alter your biology on its own. The damage occurs during the appraisal phase. If judgment verifies a threat, it signals the amygdala. The reaction is caused by the significance you grant it. Aurelius noted, if pained by an external thing, your judgment disturbs you. You can wipe it out before the cascade begins. Allowing the mind to wander into the perceived thoughts or contrivances of others is a profound drain on your ruling power. Every second spent analyzing the motives of a stranger is a second lost to building your own internal resilience. You sacrifice the strength of your own faculty to manage the opinions of people who do not matter. Much of your daily anxiety is self-inflicted by the choice to assign value to the arbitrary metrics of others. External opinions only become internal neurotoxins when you actively grant them the authority to trigger your stress response. The practical application of this shift is known in clinical psychology as strategic detachment. This practice operates differently than apathy or nihilism. Strategic detachment is a calibrated psychological boundary. It involves a deliberate decoupling of self-esteem from the unpredictable fluctuations of external metrics. This acts as a manual override for the HPA axis. When you detect social judgment, you must force the prefrontal cortex to analyze the stimulus before the amygdala can react. You execute this by asking, Does this external judgment alter my internal reality? By answering no, you deny the stimulus the clearance to trigger a biological response. Choosing not to engage emotionally starves the anxiety loop of the fuel it needs to persist. Sustaining this practice leads to the long-term neurobiological reward of neural pruning. Because the brain optimizes for efficiency, it physically breaks down and dissolves the synaptic connections associated with validation seeking. The pathways that once powered the disease to please eventually wither away. This results in profound mental autonomy and unshakable inner peace. Detachment rebiologizes the brain to ignore external noise, providing mental immunity rather than social isolation. Physiological health depends on the security of the mind. You cannot heal a cortisol-soaked system while the borders of your identity remain open to the crowd. Building the inner citadel requires the daily, deliberate act of cognitive reframing. It is the process of guarding your ruling faculty against every external influence. Algorithms and critics have no direct path to your nervous system. You are the sole arbiter of what triggers your stress response. While hypervigilance may be a lifelong habit, the brain's neuroplasticity means those pathways can be entirely rewritten through consistent detachment. The mind is a forge. For too long, external forces have been allowed to strike the anvil of your self-worth. Reclaim your internal locus of control. Deploy strategic detachment against every social evaluative threat you encounter. Starve the neural pathways of external validation by denying them your emotional attention. Use the ruling power of the prefrontal cortex to forge a mind that is absolutely invincible. The opinions of the crowd are powerless against a mind secured within its own citadel.